Wordsworth, Romney, obsolescence.
You walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. This is Mr. Romney Wordsworth, in his last 48 hours on Earth. He's a citizen of the state, but will soon have to be eliminated. Because he is built out of flesh, and because he has a mind.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, for the mandatory period of 1 year and 11 months. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that, Mr. Wordsworth? Your occupation, Mr. Wordsworth?
A librarian, sir.
A librarian. Having to do with books.
Yes, sir. Books.
Since there are no more books, Mr. Wordsworth, there are no more libraries. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete. Your rights are as follows, Mr. Wordsworth. You are to be liquidated within a period of 48 hours. You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth.
A lie. No man is obsolete.
You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions that you inject into your veins with printer's ink. The narcotics that you call literature, poetry, essays of all kind, all of it an opiate. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
I don't care. I tell you, I don't care. I'm a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought aloud, that thought lives, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
The Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete. But so is the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete.
Hallo allemaal, daar zijn we er weer, RHTV live vanuit het mooie Maastricht. Ja, en natuurlijk gaan we het over politiek hebben, zowel binnen als buitenland. In het binnenland gebeurt er niet zo heel veel. Ja, we hebben de Russische inmenging. Dat moet nog blijken wie de Russisch geld heeft gekregen. Maar goed, we are streaming live from Maastricht. And of course we're talking politics and geopolitics. And there's not much happening in the Netherlands, even though there are accusations of politicians getting Russian money. So that's what's happening in the Netherlands. And we're going to take a look at what's happening outside of the Netherlands. Ja, we gaan kijken naar het buitenland, mensen. Er gebeurt veel in het buitenland. We gaan even naar Al Jazeera toe. Zo. En we gaan kijken naar wat er allemaal is gebeurd. Ja, we weten dat Damascus is aangevallen door Israël. De Iraanse ambassade is aangevallen. En ja, dat is natuurlijk heel erg. En er zullen ook vast wel mensen zijn omgekomen, dit en dat. Dus we gaan even hier naar kijken. So, Damascus has been attacked by Israel, right? The Iranian embassy in Damascus was targeted and many people were wounded and I believe some had died. So we're going to take a look at the United Nations and see what they have to say about the whole situation.
During an emergency Security Council meeting, a UN plea for caution in response to Israel's attack on Iran's diplomatic consulate in Damascus.
Any miscalculation could lead to broader conflict in an already volatile region, with devastating consequences for civilians who are already seeing unprecedented suffering.
But Russia echoed the views of many council members, saying Israel is clearly the aggressor.
We are of the view that such aggressive actions by Israel are designed to further fuel the conflict. They are absolutely unacceptable and must stop.
Algeria said the timing of Israel's strike was deliberate.
It is evident that this dangerous act is of nature to draw the entire region into conflict.
What makes Israel's attack so troubling to many diplomats that work in this building is that it was a direct violation of many long-standing international agreements, such as the Vienna Convention, meant to protect diplomatic facilities from unprovoked aggressions. Even the United States, Israel's strongest ally, signaled they were troubled by it.
We do not yet have confirmation of the status of the building that was struck in Damascus. Any confirmed attack on property that was in fact a diplomatic facility would be of concern to the United States.
Israel has not claimed responsibility for the attack and did not ask to attend the meeting. Iran did and said the strike shows how Israel is a threat to the region.
Israel's agenda is obvious: to escalate and perpetuate the conflict while evading accountability.
Iran told the council it reserves the right to take a decisive response, something many on the council were warning against, but know could very well be likely. Gabriel Zondo, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations.
Dus hier zien we het. De VN condemneert de aanval op de Iraanse ambassade in Damascus. En Israël is er natuurlijk weer niet bij. Nee. So here we can see it, right? The UN condemns the attack on the Iranian embassy in Damascus. And of course, Israel is not at the table. And very, very sad thing to see. But what's more sad is that Israel says Al Jazeera has to go. So all foreign media is not welcome in Israel, right? Ja, mensen, jullie hebben het goed gehoord. Alle buitenlandse media is niet welkom in Israël. Ze hebben Al Jazeera hebben ze dus aan de kant geschoven. Dan mogen ze niet gaan rapporteren over wat er gebeurt in Gaza en elders. Dus Al Jazeera heeft het daar ook over. We gaan hier even kijken of we het kunnen vinden. So we're looking for the video that Al Jazeera had made. It's here somewhere, right? Al Jazeera is not allowed in Gaza anymore. They're not allowed to report on what's happening. We gaan even naar de geschiedenis. Zo, dan zie je ook wat ik allemaal aan het bekijken ben. Indiana Jones. Ja, dat is ook interessant. Missing 411. Nou, veel muziek. Ah, hier, kijk.
What is going on? That is.
Oh, we have to rewind. So as I've said, Al Jazeera is not allowed to report on what's happening in Gaza, nor are other foreign news agencies allowed to report on what's happening in Gaza. Ja. Dus buitenlandse media mag niet in Israël verschijnen, vooral niet in de Gazastrook. We gaan even hier naar kijken.
Netanyahu says the network will no longer broadcast from Israel because it threatens national security. The channel says that's inflammatory slander. What's behind the ban and what does it mean for the war on Gaza? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Hashim Ahalbara. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to take Al Jazeera off air in Israel, calling it a terror channel. He accused the network of harming Israel's national security and actively participating in the October the 7th attack. Al Jazeera says the accusations are slanderous and jeopardize the rights and safety of its employees worldwide. Media freedom groups are alarmed and warn Israel is trying to censor coverage of the war in Gaza. But this isn't the first time Israel has targeted Al Jazeera or its journalists. So how will this ban impact its coverage and what are the wider implications for the broadcasters? Plenty to discuss, but first let's set the scene with this report.
After years of threats, the Israeli parliament passed a law paving the way for Al Jazeera to be banned.
I declare that the bill to prevent a foreign broadcasting organization from harming the state's security will enter the Book of Laws.
Al Jazeera has covered Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories since it started broadcasting in 1996. During the 6 months of war on Gaza, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been pushing this legislation. In a social media post, he called Al Jazeera a terror channel, accusing it of participating in Hamas attacks on October the 7th and promising to take it off air. In response, the media network condemned the statements as a, quote, dangerous, ludicrous lie. It also said inflammatory slander would not deter its journalists from continuing their bold and professional coverage. Journalist rights organizations were quick to denounce the legislation.
We're extremely alarmed by this. It's yet another attempt by Israel to censor the media, to limit the information coming out about the war in Gaza and beyond. And we do not want to see this law enacted.
The US emphasized its support for press freedom.
Much of what we know about what has happened in Gaza is because of reporters who are there doing their jobs, including reporters from Al Jazeera.
In 2021, Israeli troops destroyed the network's bureau in the Gaza Strip, giving staff just 1 hour's notice to leave. A year later, Israeli snipers killed prominent journalist Shireen Abu Akleh while she was reporting in Jenin in the occupied West Bank. And since October the 7th, the list of Al Jazeera correspondents killed by Israel's military is growing longer. Veronica Pedrosa, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Obviously, this is a story about our fundamental interest here on Al Jazeera, but with our distinguished panel.
Not only your fundamental interest, but also the interest of other foreign news agencies trying to cover the news in Gaza. Right? Ja, mensen, het is niet alleen Al Jazeera dat een doelwit is, maar ook andere buitenlandse media. En ja, je mag niks verkeerds rapporteren over Israël. Nee, dat mag niet. Anders word je gebannen. Ja, dat is hoe het tegenwoordig eraan toe gaat. Gewoon 1 knop indrukken en dan ben je gebannen. Just press 1 button and you're banned, right? You're not allowed to talk about negatively about Israel. Right? Otherwise, you are banned. I'm not pro-Israel. I'm not pro-Palestine. I'm pro-peace. right? We want peace. Now, whether it's a two-state solution or a one-state solution, I don't really care. You know, I'm on the fence on this issue, but there has to be peace, right? Ja, mensen, we willen vrede. Dat is wat we willen. Vrede in het Midden-Oosten. We zijn niet pro-Israël, we zijn niet pro-Palestina. We willen vrede. Vrede in de Levant. Ja. En dat is al iets heel erg moeilijk, want heel veel rijken hebben het geprobeerd over te nemen. En noem het allemaal op. Dus ja, vrede is wat we willen. Ja, en geen bemoeienis van overheid, hè. Dat willen we ook niet. Nee. Nou, als we kijken naar Schotland, er zijn nieuwe regels gekomen in Schotland. En ja, dat is het meest belachelijke ding ooit. Ze willen gewoon controle op de mens hebben. So if we look at Scotland, right, the Scottish are not free, even though there's a new hate law, and it's stupid. It really is stupid. J.K. Rowling, right, the author of Harry Potter, actually tweeted something and said, "Arrest me." I don't know what she really tweeted, but because of these new Scottish laws, you know, people can get arrested for stupid things. Ja, we gaan even kijken naar Paul Joseph Watson. Die heeft het daarover, over Schotland. En ja, we gaan even kijken hiernaar. Dit is overigens de Schotse premier. Ja, een moslimpersoon. En die zegt van ja, er zijn te veel witte mensen hier. Ja, wit, niet blank. Eigenlijk zijn blanke mensen. Hij noemt ze maar wit. Maar we gaan even hier naar kijken.
The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white.
Hello, Police Scotland. Yeah, I'd like to report a hate crime. Dozens actually did precisely that. Police Scotland weren't interested. The leader of a country demonising an entire race in front of the national parliament.
White.
Not a hate crime. Calling a biological man a man. Lock him up for 7 years. Think I'm joking? Ooh, think again. Welcome to the utter stupidity of the Hate Crime and Public Order Scotland Act, under which even the BBC acknowledges that insulting a transgender person by misgendering feminine pillars of beauty such as this is now a hate crime in Scotland. Welcome to Scotland. Please gender carefully. But it gets stupider. It always gets stupider. The official guidance that accompanied the passage of the bill, intended to prevent demonisation of people based on race and age, literally demonises people based on race and age. On its own website, Police Scotland states, "We know young men aged 18 to 30 are most likely to commit hate crime. They may have deep-rooted feelings of being socially and economically disadvantaged, combined with ideas about white male entitlement." Yeah, is that Police Scotland? I'd like to report a hate crime by Police Scotland. The Indian Council of Scotland have actually reported this to Police Scotland. Can you investigate the Labour leader? Because he also seems to be suggesting that there's something wrong with being white.
Every director of a department in Scotland, white. Every principal of a college or university in Scotland, white. Every head teacher in Scotland, white.
You are in a country where there are 98% or, you know, something along those lines, white people, you know, so it's like going to Africa, to South Africa and saying, hey, that guy's black, that guy's black, that guy's black, hey, that guy's black. There are too many black people here. It's like, what the hell, man? Go back to your own country. If you don't, you know, if you don't like it there, you know. It's stupid. Why should these people have power? Right? Stupid. Ja, mensen, 96 tot 98% is blank in Schotland. En dan heb je een moslim die zegt dat er te veel blanke mensen zijn. Nou, dat kan toch niet waar zijn? It's like, oh my god, really? Really? Ja, dit is toch onvoorstelbaar. En deze mensen hebben ook nog macht, hè? Dat is toch, hè? Ik snap er helemaal niks van. I don't get it, right? I really don't get it. Why do these idiots have political power? I don't understand this. You know? So, yeah, it's really, really amazing. Het is echt verwonderlijk dat deze mensen nog macht hebben. Ja. Maar ja, we moeten naar de regering luisteren. Hè? Als je niet naar de regering luistert, dan ben je extremist. Ben je een anti-institutioneel extremist. De regering heeft altijd gelijk. Ja. Ook al hebben ze geen gelijk, de regering heeft altijd gelijk. Ja, je moet naar de regering luisteren. The government always wants to help you, right? If we look at certain statistics of democide, right, which is death by government, I believe that is the prevailing death in the 20th century. Right? Many people died at the hands of government. So you may say it's weird and stuff like that, but yeah, we're going to show you what democide really means. Ja, we laten even zien wat democide eigenlijk inhoudt. Democide, dood door overheid. So, democide refers to the intentional killing of an unarmed or disarmed person by government agents acting in their authoritative capacity and pursuant to government policy or high command. Ja, democide. En ik geloof dat 262 miljoen mensen zijn doodgegaan door de handen van overheid. En ja, dat is toch heel erg triest. We zien hier zo wat statistieken. China 76,702. Dan hebben we hier zo nog de Sovjet-Unie. 61,911. Ja, dit zijn bedragen, dit zijn mensenlevens, hè. Democratic Kampuchea, hier ook weer zo'n hoog bedrag. Het zijn mensenlevens. So these are all the people that have died during the regime of Mao, right, in China, the Soviet Union. Look at all these numbers, man. These are all people. These people had a life. And, you know, it's really, really amazing. So you can look up the statistics of democide, but we have to trust the government. Ja, we moeten de regering vertrouwen. Oh, want ja, de regering heeft het beste met je voor, hoor. Ja. Hoe zat het ook weer met de aantal doden door de vaccinatie? Dat hebben ze natuurlijk eventjes uitgesteld. Want er zijn belangrijkere dingen, zoals wie de Russisch geld heeft gekregen. Het zijn allemaal afleidingen. Want men wil weten over de oversterfte. Er zou toch een parlementair onderzoek naar komen in dit en dat. Dat is wel geweest. Maar dat moet nog voorgedragen worden aan het parlement. Dus ze hebben heel veel te verschuilen. Al die overheidsinstanties. Maar jij en ik, wij moeten alles opgeven. So all these government institutions have a lot to hide. But you and I, we must show everything and stuff like that. It's really, really stupid. Echt heel dom. Waarom doen mensen hier nou aan mee? Ik snap het niet. Je zou hier toch juist tegen willen werken. Of ben je niet wakker genoeg? Aren't you awake enough? You know, are you satisfied with the government dealing with children and people and you know, waging wars and stuff like that? Are you satisfied with that? Do you pay taxes for that? There must be a time when there is no government. Yeah, no government that controls the people anymore. Right? So, yeah, these are the numbers of people that have died at the hands of government. Yet we have to believe government when they say something, right? If you look at Ukraine, for example, MH17, which was a plane, flew over Ukraine with a lot of Dutch people inside that plane, and it crashed in the east of Ukraine, near Luhansk. And John Kerry, then foreign minister of foreign affairs, said we have video image of Russian separatists bringing down MH17 with a Buk missile, and we have video evidence of that. No, you don't. You're lying, John Kerry. You are lying. You don't have any video evidence, right? It was never presented to the Dutch people. So you were lying, Kerry. You were lying. This whole war is about expansion, right? NATO expansion. That's what it's about. You know, and Russia is warding off the extremists in Kiev, right? The Bandera extremists, the radicals put in power by the US, right? We know what's happening. We know that the media is lying. We know that they're lying about every situation, you know, such as the strike in Damascus, right? Oh, Israel has a right to defend itself. Yeah, but since when is Syria involved in the war in the Gaza Strip, right? We know what's going on. We know that proxies try to overthrow Assad in Damascus, and he basically asked Iran to support Syria, and they did. Right? They did. And that General Soleimani, he was fighting off the proxies that were trying to overthrow Assad. And Soleimani died in Baghdad by a drone strike. We remember that, right? We remember. We have a memory. Ja, mensen, het is één grote wespennest in het Midden-Oosten. Israël valt dus Damascus aan, de Iraanse ambassade in Damascus. Nou, dat mag eigenlijk niet volgens internationale regels, maar ja, dat gebeurt er. En wordt er gezegd, Israël heeft het recht om zichzelf te verdedigen. Sinds wanneer is Syrië betrokken in het oorlog in de Gazastrook? Eigenlijk moet Syrië hier buiten vallen. So, you know, why attack Syria when Syria is not involved in the war, right? Israel is expanding the war, and Iran had said Israel is a danger to the area. And yeah, I say they're right. They're right. Even though Iran is also a very corrupt country, you know, they cannot be trusted. But, you know, sometimes they are right in what they say. So, this is all happening, folks. And I'm not a journalist. I'm just a guy watching what's happening in and around our beautiful planet. And sometimes I go live and talk about the situation, right? Ja, mensen, ik ben geen journalist. Ik ben gewoon iemand die kijkt naar het nieuws en die ook het nieuws op zijn eigen manier weergeeft. En ja, heel veel mensen kunnen daar niet tegen. Die hebben zoiets van, waar bemoeit hij zich mee? Alsof theologie een expert is. Nou, kom maar. Dan gaan we eens even praten over Azerbeidzjan en Armenië. Of de oorlog in Sudan. Of Ethiopië. So, everyone's like, you know, you're not an expert. Well, come on. We'll talk about, you know, Sudan or Israel or, you know, whatever topic you want to talk about. Come on in the live stream and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the situation within Azerbaijan and Armenia, right? We'll talk about Nagorno-Karabakh. We'll talk about any subject that has to deal with geopolitics, such as Kashmir. And, you know, here we have Kashmir, which Afghanistan says that is part of our country. Pakistan says that's part of our country. India says that's our country. And China says the same, right? So it's called a pressure point, right? Lots of pressure in the area. Het heet dus een drukpunt. Heel veel druk binnen een gebied. Dus, en dan hebben we ook Noord-Korea, die eigenlijk een satellietstaat is voor China. En daar wordt dus naar gekeken. En de druk wordt uitgeoefend door Zuid-Korea. We weten nog de non-nucleaire deal die op tafel lag. Wat zei Noord-Korea ook alweer? Nou, Zuid-Korea moet ophouden met de oefeningen die gebeuren in het zuiden van Noord-Korea. Ja. En Zuid-Korea zegt, ja, dikke middelvinger, wij gaan gewoon door. Waardoor Noord-Korea meer gaat bewapenen en zoiets. En ook af en toe wat raketten gaat testen. In de zee van Japan. Er is wel een raket over Japan heen gevlogen. En ook hier in de Gele Zee wordt er getest en zoiets allemaal. Dit omdat er oefeningen worden gedaan door Zuid-Korea en Amerika en Japan. Dus, so I was explaining in Dutch North Korea is a satellite state of China, right? All eyes are on North Korea because South Korea is testing the waters, basically having drills with other countries and the US, putting a pressure point on North Korea, doing tests, drills in the north of South Korea, right? And North Korea said, nope, we don't want that. Remember the denuclear proliferation stuff, right? Donald Trump went there and stuff like that. Well, that was on table. North Korea had said, okay, you want us to open our borders? Okay, you guys have to stop those drills over there in the south of North Korea or the north of South Korea, right? And South Korea says, nope, we're still doing our drills. So that amplifies North Korea to arm itself even more and even expand their arms to Russia, right? Because Russia is fighting a war in Ukraine. It's all interlinked with each other. Ja, dus Noord-Korea geeft zelfs wapens aan Rusland, want Rusland heeft een oorlog in Oekraïne die ze aan het vechten zijn. Ja. En er zijn allerlei sancties tegen Rusland. Je mag dit niet meer tegen Rusland, mag niet meer handelen. Maar Rusland omzeilt al die sancties, geeft dus hun olie en gas aan India en andere landen. En die exporteren dat dan weer naar andere landen toe. So Russia is basically giving gas to India and other countries within Asia, and they have an export, so they're exporting the gas to other countries, right? We also have the Nord Stream pipeline, which was bombed, and still the investigation within the EU. These are states within the EU that have an investigation about the Nord Stream, which are Sweden, Denmark, Germany, England, and some other countries, I believe Poland, right? They're having an investigation about the Nord Stream pipeline, and that's been stalled. We all know who did it. We all know that the US basically, broke the pipeline. But Moscow is looking at Turkey as an export, right, to give their gas and oil. So that goes through the Black Sea, right? So that's still on table, and it's being stalled basically because Ukraine is actively within the Black Sea. Ja, Oekraïne zit een beetje dwars. Die gaat wat schepen bombarderen en noem het allemaal op. So many ships have sunk because Ukraine is interfering in the Black Sea, right? They want Crimea and they can't get it because it's in Russian hands. Ja, mensen, er gebeurt veel. Er gebeurt ontzettend veel. There's a lot happening. So the last time we were live, we talked about the Balkans, right? The first Balkan War, and maybe it's appropriate to show the second Balkan War, and we'll also show the Third Balkan War. Next episode. So, we know that Bulgaria wanted to expand after the First Balkan War, right? There were certain harbors that Greece had got and stuff like that. And Bulgaria said, nope, that's our harbor. And yeah, we know that the Ottoman Empire fell within the Balkans. And we're going to take a look at the Second Balkan War.
On the 30th of May, 1913, the First Balkan War ends. It lasted for almost 8 months. The conflict has brought even more poverty in the Balkans. The Balkan League achieved a great and historical success against the Ottomans, a dynasty who ruled the region for centuries. The Ottoman Empire was almost expelled from continental Europe, losing important strategic points and cities. Among them was the historical city of Adrianople, the former Ottoman capital and one of the earliest conquests of the dynasty, centuries ago. Their European lands were distributed between the winners, and Albania got its independence. But even if this was a major success for each member of the Balkan League, one of them wasn't so satisfied. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Throne Kingdom at War, a free-to-play online strategy game with millions of players, in which you can have some fun by building your own kingdom. If you are a fan of history, you probably love action, strategy, and battles. If you do, you will find this game quite interesting and captivating. You can customize your hero, build your own fortified city, and defeat your enemies. If you remember the old RPG strategy games and you love some fantasy added on, you will feel just at home.
Stupid commercials.
However, the good relations between the victorious Balkan allies quickly disappeared, and this was due to the division of some lands, especially in Macedonia. During the pre-war negotiations that had resulted in the establishment of the Balkan League, Serbia and Bulgaria signed a secret agreement on the 13th of March, 1912, which determined their future boundaries, in effect sharing northern Macedonia between them. During the war, the Serbs succeeded in capturing an area far south of the agreed border. At the same time, a major goal for the Bulgarians was to capture the important port of Thessaloniki, but the Greeks advanced north, occupying the city and establishing a common Greek border with Serbia. When Bulgaria called upon Serbia to honor the pre-war agreement over northern Macedonia, the Serbs displeased at the great powers requiring them to give up their gains in northern Albania. But Balkan forces were required to leave the territory of the new Albanian state. These problems ended the Serbo-Bulgarian alliance. Seeing Bulgaria as a potential threat, Serbia started negotiations with Greece, a country that also had reasons to be concerned about Bulgarian intentions. Just 28 days before the Bulgarian attack, Greece and Serbia signed a secret defensive alliance, confirming the current demarcation line between the two occupation zones as their mutual border, and concluding an alliance in case of an attack from Bulgaria or from Austria-Hungary. The Tsar of Bulgaria, Ferdinand, desired the creation of a new Bulgarian expanded state. In 1912, Ferdinand joined the other Balkan states in an assault on the Ottoman Empire to free occupied territories. He saw this war as a new crusade, declaring it a just, great, and sacred struggle of the cross against the crescent. Considering their numbers and their actions, Bulgaria contributed the most and also lost the greatest number of soldiers. The great powers insisted on the creation of an independent Albania. In the original documents for the Balkan League, Serbia and Greece had been pressured by Bulgaria to hand over most of Macedonia after they had freed it from Turkish rule. However, Serbia and Greece, responding to popular protest, said that they would keep the possession of the territories that their forces had occupied. In 1912, Bulgaria's national aspirations, as expressed by Tsar Ferdinand and the military leadership around him, exceeded the provisions of the 1878 Treaty of San Stefano, considered even then as maximalistic, since it included both eastern and western Thrace, and all Macedonia, with Thessaloniki, Edirne, and Constantinople. A big dream for him, seen like a fantasy by others, was to be crowned in Constantinople, but the big plan failed after the Ottomans managed to hold their positions very close to their capital. By doing so, Constantinople wasn't conquered. By mid-June, Bulgaria had become aware of the agreement between Serbia and Greece in case of a Bulgarian attack. On the 27th of June, Montenegro announced that it would side with Serbia in the event of a Serbian-Bulgarian war. One day after, Romania officially warned Bulgaria that it would not remain neutral in a new Balkan war. Russia tried to stop the upcoming conflict, but Russian diplomats realized that the Bulgarians had already decided to go to war with Serbia. As skirmishing continued in Macedonia, and the tension got higher and higher, for many it was clear that a new war is about to begin. On the 29th of June, the Bulgarian High Command, under the direct control of Tsar Ferdinand, ordered Bulgarian troops to start a surprise attack against both the Serbian and Greek positions, without declaring war, and to dismiss any orders contradicting the attack order. It's believed that the Tsar did that without notifying the government. The next day, the government put pressure on the general staff to order the army to cease hostilities, which caused confusion and loss of initiative and failed to remedy the state of undeclared war. Consequently, although the Bulgarian army had around 600,000 men, mobilizing in the beginning of the First Balkan War, there were only 9 organizational divisions, giving a divisional strength closer to an army corps than to a division. Tactical necessities during and after the First Balkan War modified this original structure. A new 10th Division was formed, using 2 brigades from the 1st and 6th Divisions, and an additional 3 independent brigades were formed from new recruits. Also, their heavy structure remained. In the other team, the Greek army of Macedonia had also 9 divisions, but the total number of men under arms was only 118,000. Another decisive factor affecting the real strength of the divisions between the opposing armies was the distribution of artillery. The 9-division-strong Greek army had a total of 176 guns, and the 10-division-strong Serbian army 230. The Bulgarians had 1,116, a ratio of 6-to-1 against the Greeks, and 5-to-1 against the Serbian army. The main Bulgarian attack was planned against the Serbs with their 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 5th armies, while the 2nd Army was tasked with an attack towards Greek positions around Thessaloniki. However, in the crucial opening days of the war, only the 4th Army and 2nd Army were ordered to advance. This allowed the Serbs to concentrate their forces against the attacking Bulgarians and hold their advance. The 4th Bulgarian Army held a very important position, and they sought to conquer Serbia and Macedonia. The fighting started on the 29th to 30th of June, 1913. The 4th Bulgarian Army advanced and attacked Serbian positions, where 1st and 3rd Serbian armies were. A quick small success was followed by heavy Bulgarian losses in the 1st to the 3rd of July. The Serbs captured the whole 7th Division of the 4th Bulgarian Army without any fight. The attack was stopped and the offensive was pushed back. The Bulgarians dug into strong positions around the village of Kalamansi, at the Brigolnica River. On the 18th of July, the Serbian 3rd Army attacked and the Bulgarians resisted. The Bulgarians were outnumbered on the Greek front, and the low-level fighting soon turned into Greek attack. The Bulgarian forces were forced to withdraw from their positions north of Thessaloniki. The plan to quickly destroy the Serbian army in central Macedonia by concentrated attack turned out to be unrealistic, and the Bulgarian army started to retreat. The Bulgarian 2nd Army in southern Macedonia, commanded by General Ivanov, held a line from Dodrin Lake southeast to Kilkis, Lachanas. On the 26th of June, the Bulgarian army received orders to attack Greece and advance towards Thessaloniki. The Greeks stopped them, and by the 29th of June, a general counterattack started. At Kilkis, the Bulgarians were defeated and the Greek forces advanced. Then, on the 5th of July, they captured Doiran, but were unable to cut off the Bulgarian retreating forces. On the 11th of July, the Greeks came in contact with the Serbs and then pushed on up the Struma River. The Serbian front had become static. King Constantine, seeing that the Bulgarian army at his front had already been defeated, ordered the Greek army to march further into Bulgaria. Romania declared war on Bulgaria on the 10th of July and started to advance unopposed in southern Dobruja and across the Danube. On the 20th of July, they occupied Vratsa. 116 kilometers north of Bulgarian capital, Sofia. The capital was open to the invader, and the northwestern corner of the country was cut off and surrounded. The Romanian Air Force performed propaganda leaflet drops. Sofia became the first capital city in the world to be overflown by enemy aircraft. The lack of resistance to the Romanian invasion convinced the Ottomans to invade the territories just seceded to Bulgaria. The main object of the invasion was the recovery of Adrianople, which was captured by the Turkish forces without resistance. The Ottoman forces carried out atrocities against the Bulgarians in eastern Thrace and expelled nearly all of them. The odds were against Bulgaria by far. Encircled by enemies, their armies couldn't keep up. This situation was probably a result of poor management, aggressiveness in declarations, and willingness to go to war without taking into account the possible consequences. Bulgaria lashed out against its former allies, Serbia and Greece, with exhausted troops and a ludicrously optimistic strategy promoted by its impulsive Tsar Ferdinand. On the 10th of August, Bulgaria, Greece...
Basically, this was a power vacuum, right? You have Turkey, or the Ottoman Empire, attacking Bulgaria. You have Romania attacking Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece, right? It's a power vacuum.
Montenegro, Romania, and Serbia signed the Treaty of Bucharest. Macedonia was divided. Bulgaria thus enlarged its territory by 16% compared to what it was before the First Balkan War. Serbia almost doubled its size, and Greece expanded with around 68%. Also, a separate peace with the Ottomans was made. Bulgaria lost Adrianople and eastern Thrace. Again, after this episode, Bulgaria will not be happy, and in 1915 will join the Central Powers. But this is a topic for another video. A big thank you again to our sponsor, Throne Kingdom at War. Don't forget to check them out by accessing the link down in the description. And also a big thank you...
Never mind that, so now we know about the Second Balkan War. There's also a Third Balkan War, right? That will be the next episode. But first, we're going to watch the Decembrists. The what? The Decembrists. That was the first Russian uprising against the monarchy. So we're going to take a look at this here.
1815. At the Battle of Waterloo, French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte suffers his final defeat, and 2 decades of war in Europe come to an end. The victorious powers, led by Austria, Britain, Prussia, and Russia, meet at Vienna to decide the fate of Europe. The frontiers of nations and empires are redrawn, while Emperor Alexander of Russia adds King of Poland to his list of titles. He also oversees creation of a holy alliance to ensure that no more revolutions threaten Europe's established order. The Russian Empire, after many great sacrifices in the wars against Napoleon, emerges more powerful than ever. But not everyone in Russia is pleased with the new state of affairs. A group of young army officers dream of a different future for Russia. A new form of government, radical reforms, even a Russia without a Tsar. In 1812, Napoleon had invaded Russia with the largest army Europe had ever seen. It was a defining moment in his reign. But he underestimated Russian resolve. 4 months later, the remnants of his army began its infamous retreat from Moscow. The Russian army and its coalition allies then drove Napoleon's forces back across Europe, fighting giant...
They even came into Paris, it's like... Yeah, and this is the Russian threat. that we're still talking about.
Battles in Germany, and finally arriving in the streets of Paris itself. Napoleon's abdication was a moment of triumph for Emperor Alexander and for Russia. For many young Russian officers, it was also an eye-opening experience. Imperial Russia was an autocracy, ruled by an emperor with no checks upon his power. There was no political opposition or constitution. There was no freedom of speech or right to trial. Approximately 80% of Russians were serfs, peasants with no rights, freedom, or hope of betterment, their status passed down to their children. The inefficiency, not to mention injustice, of such a system was increasingly apparent even to many Russian aristocrats. In Europe, serving as officers in the Russian army, they'd visited countries where serfdom had been swept aside by war and revolution, and where monarchs had granted constitutions that limited their power, protected freedoms, and acknowledged the rule of law. Many were inspired and began to dream of similar reforms in Russia. But few placed faith in Emperor Alexander to aid their cause. On the night of the 11th of March, 1801, Alexander's father, Emperor Paul, was strangled to death by a group of disaffected army officers. Alexander succeeded to the throne, aged just 23. The ineffectiveness and chaos of his father's rule had appalled him. In 1797, he'd written to his tutor, "To speak plainly, the well-being of the state is not at all considered in the administration of affairs. There is only absolute power, which does everything wrong and at cross purposes. The choice of officials is entirely a matter of favoritism. Merit counts for nothing. The farmer is plagued, commerce is hindered, personal liberty and well-being are reduced to nothing. There you have the picture of Russia. Judge how my heart must suffer."
He was a pretty, he wanted the reforms, but after Napoleon attacked Russia, he said, nope, no reforms, it's too dangerous. I still want my power, right? Too dangerous to have more freedoms in Russia. So they became more authoritarian, right? So this is all what's happened. This is all history. Know your history to know the future, right? Because, the Russian threat is that Russia will invade Europe, which they already did, right? After Napoleon fell, basically. Dit is de Russische dreiging, mensen. In 18 zoveel kwam dus Rusland in Parijs. Ja, en mensen huiveren er nu nog van. Oh, die Russen. Oh, die gevaarlijke Russen. Dat is ook de reden waarom Rutte zegt, als Rusland de oorlog in Oekraïne wint, dan is het een lanceerplatform voor andere idealen waar Rusland heel veel profijt van heeft. Dit gebeurt allemaal, mensen. So the Prime Minister, the demissionary Prime Minister of the Netherlands says that, we must win the war in Ukraine, otherwise the Netherlands will be used as a Russian platform, and that will be destabilizing all of Europe and the Netherlands, and this is what they're trying to prevent. Even though we know, right, that Russia has their own target which is the east of Ukraine, and they're not going any further to Kiev. They already tried in the second week of the war, right? But then there was a peace negotiation in Turkey. And England, which was involved in the peace negotiation, said, nope, we're not going to do that. Ukraine is going to fight. And we already explained the battlefield. You see, the Russians are taking over areas and then they go back, right? And make trenches and barbed wire and stuff like that. And then they go back to their defensive line and wait for the Ukrainians to come. So this is what's been happening in the war. This is why Kharkiv was in Russian control, and then they backed away, right? So Kharkiv could be independent again. That's what they wanted to be. They didn't want to be involved in the coup government in Ukraine, in Kiev. So they asked autonomy, and they, well, didn't really get it, but they are acting as an autonomous state within Ukraine. This is why Russia is retreating. Ja, mensen, Kharkiv heeft autonomie eigenlijk. En Rusland die trekt zich daarvan terug. Die zegt van nou, Kharkiv, de Oekraïners zijn weg. En we blijven in de buurt. En mochten ze komen, dan gaan we weer Kharkiv binnen. En ja, dat is gebeurd. En zo heb je meerdere plekken in Oekraïne waar dus dat gebeurt. Eerst pakken ze een stuk land en dan trekken zij zich terug. En naarmate zij zich terugtrekken, gaan ze grachten maken, een prikkeldraad, een moeilijk terrein, zodat ze op een defensieve lijn kunnen gaan wachten. En ja, dat is moeilijk terrein om over te nemen. Dat is waarom de lijn ook fluctueert. Ja, gaat op en neer. De ene keer hebben ze dus die regio in handen, dat gebied daar. En de andere keer hebben ze dat gebied. En zo kennen we dus ook Bakhmut. Die dus hier hebben Bakhmut. En ja, Rusland heeft zich dat plek geëigend en daarna weer teruggetrokken. En ja, daarna weer aangevallen. En nu trekken zij zich weer terug en gaan ze naar Kramatorsk. Ja, dus de lijn verschuift de hele tijd en dit gebeurt. Maar ze blijven wel in het oosten van Oekraïne. So, during the beginning of the war, they were almost in Kiev, right? Almost in Kiev. And yeah, they did not take over Kiev because there was a peace deal. And England said, nope, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep on fighting. Thus, the war is prolonged, right? This is what Orwell warned us about. The war is not meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous, right? So how does Russia finance their war? Well, you only have to look at Sudan, right? And you'll know enough. We had a special about Sudan, about the Sudan war. If you've missed it, we're going to give the red line here. basically you had a government in Sudan that was overthrown by the army and paramilitary army, and they had power, and the paramilitary army and the army were fighting each other and still are fighting each other, and this is the red line that we're explaining, and there are many factions involved in the war in Sudan. So maybe there's a video about that we can show. Let's see, let's find some images here. So 2 months ago, the army regained power in Khartoum, the capital city, and we're going to take a look at that.
This is what the streets of Omdurman suburb of Wad Nubawi now look like. The aftermath of battles between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. Homes and shops, all riddled with bullet and artillery holes, all destroyed since the RSF entered the district nearly 5 months ago. Until recently, Wad Nubawi was a battlefield between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces here in Omdurman. Nearly all of its residents have been displaced as a result. The Sudanese army now controls it and is pushing to regain more grounds from the fighters. But the district that was once vibrant now carries the scars of the conflict. And the sound of artillery and gunfire, a warning that the front line is not far from where we are. Al-Sadiq Sherfi and his family are the only civilians still remaining in this part of the district. He shows us what's become of his house, which he says was occupied by the RSF while he and his family were in it. He says the group terrorized them while they were there and continued to fire artillery at his house after they've left.
It was not easy, but with time my family has adapted to the fact that we have no way to escape. We are in a very critical situation without any resources. We stayed and we tried to adapt ourselves to hearing this. And every one of my family, I'm sure, that has lost at least between 10 to 15 kilograms of his own weight. We are eating 1 food the whole day and 1 meal a day.
The army's recent gains comes after months of fighting. Omdurman is a major supply route for the RSF, even after a bridge connecting it to the northern part of the capital Khartoum was destroyed. The RSF has been firing artillery to try to stop the army, but civilians have also been killed as a result of what local committees describe as indiscriminate shelling. As the fighting continues, so does the destruction and the loss of civilian lives. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Omdurman.
Alex De Waal is the executive director for the World Peace.
So we know that the army is fighting the RSF, right? But there's more. There's a lot more. We also have Wagner troops, right? Russian mercenaries in Sudan protecting a gold mine. And this is how they finance the war, right? With gold. You don't believe me? Oh, well, we're going to take a look. Ja, mensen, de oorlog in Oekraïne wordt gefinancierd door goud dat uit Sudan komt. We hebben Wagner-troepen in Sudan. Why Sudan is dying. En ja, we gaan even hier naar kijken.
Fighters in the RSF, the SAF has resorted to their superior air power to bomb RSF positions from the sky, and they frequently carried out indiscriminate airstrikes of civilian populated areas in the name of attacking the RSF and their supply lines. And the RSF has been continuing to swell their numbers because they're attracting large numbers of volunteers from thousands of miles away. When you look in northern Africa through the lens of ethnicity, you will see a nearly continuous belt of Arab-identifying tribes that extends westward from Sudan and Darfur, through Chad and Niger, and then into Mali and Mauritania. Hamedi, as a member of one of these Arab-identifying tribes himself, has made strategic alliances and overtures to many of these other tribes spanning all the way to the Atlantic. And thousands of men from these regions have flocked to join the RSF in his active fights in Sudan and in Darfur. Many of them are coming for loot and plunder, as cars and other valuable goods are stolen in Sudan during their raids and then transported westward across the Sahel and resold to unsuspecting buyers in so-called Dagalo markets, named after Hamdan Dagalo himself. And unlike the Janjaweed of the past, who largely carried out their atrocities in Darfur with horses and AK-47s, the RSF of today are acquiring very heavy advanced weapons to help them in their war this time around, like anti-tank weapons, surface-to-air missiles, machine guns, and grenade launchers because of all the different proxy wars that are taking place in Sudan, atop of the war between the RSF and the SAF. First and foremost is the struggle for supremacy in Sudan that is ongoing between the rival royal families of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Both are major investors in the Sudanese economy.
We also saw this in Bulgaria, the second war in the Balkans. Foreign powers that are, interfering in their politics.
With substantial assets they stand to lose if the side they don't want to win comes out on top. The Emirates have already invested more than $13 billion into the country, while the Saudis announced in 2022, before the war began, that they would invest up to $24 billion into the country as well. Sudan is, after all, a very valuable piece on the board in the United Arab Emirates' grander geopolitical objectives around the Red Sea. Abu Dhabi and Riyadh are each actively competing against the other to become the leading Arab and Persian Gulf state. Though the UAE only has a fourth of Saudi Arabia's population, the Emirates have an economy that punches far above their weight that's about half the size of the Saudis. And the two are the leading economic powers in the Arab world. The Saudis dominate the eastern shore of the Red Sea with their own shoreline, one of the most critical shipping routes in the world, with the Suez Canal to the north and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait to the south. The UAE has therefore spent years attempting to build up their position and influence around the Red Sea's shores, to challenge Saudi hegemony in the area, by backing the secessionist Southern Transitional Council in Yemen against the Saudi-backed government and Iranian-backed Houthis, and by building up military bases on the Yemeni islands of Socotra and Perim, by investing hundreds of millions of dollars into developing the port of Berbera nearby to the Red Sea in the breakaway state of Somaliland, by supporting the government of Abiy Ahmed in Ethiopia, and by cultivating ties to the RSF and Hamedi in Sudan, whose fighters the UAE used in Yemen and fought alongside of in Libya before the war in Sudan even began. The UAE then quickly chose to back Hamedi and the RSF in Sudan once the war began, hoping that an outright RSF victory in the country would cement their growing geopolitical influence and clout in the Red Sea region at the expense of the Saudis. And although Abu Dhabi denies it, there is credible evidence that the UAE has been supplying the RSF with massive quantities of weapons. A report from the Wall Street Journal showed several dozen armed deliveries that the UAE made to the RSF after the war began through the airport of Amjaras just across the border in Chad, while the UAE is further giving the RSF access to their banks and financial system so they can skirt around US sanctions in exchange for Emirati access to the RSF's controlled gold mines and oil fields in Sudan. Khalifa Haftar, the warlord who rules the eastern half of Libya, that the UAE and the RSF both supported for years during the Libyan civil war, has also apparently decided on returning the favor by opening up the stockpiles of the previous Gaddafi regime in Libya to the RSF. That has included anti-tank weapons in addition to convoys carrying Libyan oil to power the RSF's vehicles. And in addition to the military support they're receiving from the UAE and from Haftar's Libya, and from thousands of volunteers who are coming from all across the Sahel, Hamedi and the RSF are also receiving significant military support from Russia's paramilitary Wagner Group as well. The Wagner Group has been known to have had a presence within Sudan since at least 2017, as a mercenary group for hire. Wagner soldiers were contracted in Sudan to guard valuable gold mines in the unstable Darfur region, and they brought in Russian weaponry in exchange for Sudanese gold.
This is how Russia supports their own war, right? They get gold from Sudan, And now we know why there is a secret military base at Yemen, right? Wow, a secret military base, really? Yep, Richard Medhurst talks about it. U.S. builds secret airship on Yemen's strategic Socotra Island. We're going to put that on the map.
So, the United States are building an airstrip that they don't want a lot of people to know about, but they haven't done a good job at concealing. And they're building this in Yemen on Socotra Island. Now, before I proceed, you have to understand two things about Socotra. It's beautiful and it's strategic. It's beautiful and it's strategic. I swear to God, I'm gonna do this in front of you. If you look up photos of this island, you will not believe it. It looks like another planet. It is freakishly beautiful. Look at this. Unbelievable beauty. And what have the imperialists done? The Israelis, the UAE, and the Americans have colonized the island. They have put spy stations, military installations on it, and now the Americans are building this. They're putting this monstrosity that no one gave them permission to build on top of it. And they write here, I love UAE. They're trying to make it look like, you know, some tourist. Because, like I said, they've colonized the island, so you have to go through the UAE if you want to visit, if you can visit. They want to make it look like it's an Emirati installation. This is an American strip, and the reason that they've stolen this island, I mean, just look at its position. Look at its position. It sits at the gate of everything. The Gulf of Aden, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Strait of Hormuz, at the mouth of the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean. It's not going to help them, though, I can tell you that. It's not going to help whatever plan the Israelis and Americans have, because they are in a losing war. But these thieves have taken this from Yemen. What they have done is, again, I have a big analysis video coming out tomorrow, a huge analysis video about the region, about what's happening in the world right now. You'll hear more.
So this was 2 days ago, and basically they want to attack enemies attacking Israel, right? This is why there's an airstrip at the Gulf of Yemen. So he already put it on the map, but we are also going to put it on the map. Here we go. Here we have the island, right? Geostrategic place. And many, many people, you know, are against this. So they're going to provide jets and fighters and stuff like that. And then they're going to fly over to Israel and bomb anyone defying Israel, right? And then they fly back and refuel. So this is what's happening. And they're also doing this against the Houthis that have power in Sana'a, so they can bomb the Houthis. Yeah, it's pretty easy, you know. And they have access to Iran, you see. It's also not very far. So they can bomb any target in Iran, right? This is why the US took over the island, and who knows what else they're going to do. So this is an attack from behind, you see? This is how they're going to support Israel and their interests. Maybe they can even bomb Ethiopia or Somalia or whatever other African country, they do not care, right? They do not care. They just take over an island and say it's ours, you know. They don't care. War is profit. And war is not only destruction, but also lots of profit, right? So we're going to take a look at the real enemy of the world, which is the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower warned about the military-industrial complex.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction.
He's basically talking about Pax Americana.
Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
That's what we are trying to do, Mr. Eisenhower. You created Pax Americana, and we are not satisfied with that anymore, right? We want a multipolar world, not a unipolar world, but a multipolar world. And here we go, Pax Americana. Pax Americana, American peace in Latin, modeled after Pax Romana and Pax Britannica, also called the Long Peace, is a term applied to the concept of relative peace in the Western Hemisphere and later in the world after the end of World War II in 1945, when the United States became the world's dominant economic, cultural, and military power. This is because they threw 2 atomic bombs in a country named Japan. In this sense, Pax Americana has come to describe the military and economic position of the United States relative to other nations. The U.S. Marshall Plan, which, we profited from, the Netherlands, which saw the country transfer of 13.3 billion, equivalent to 173 billion in 2023 in economic recovery programs in Western European countries, blah, 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 Pax Americana. So there you go, right? Pax Americana. You have to comply with us, otherwise we're going to put a proxy and try to destabilize your country. This is what's happening in and around our beautiful planet, right? So there you have it. We're going to close off with Alex Jones, and he knows who the enemy is. We're going to take a look at this here.
Alex Jones is the single most censored man in all American history. Deplatformed. Alex Jones was deplatformed before it was a common term. He joins us now in our studio.
I see you, enemy. You are my enemy. He is your enemy. I see you, enemy.
So we thought it'd be interesting to start with a series of on-tape predictions that you made, some of which are so precise and so prescient that makes the hair on my arm stand up.
This guy, the spirit, the smiling, leering devil, that thinks you can't see what he is. I see you, enemy. Enemy, enemy. You are my enemy. He is your enemy. And I swear total resistance to you with everything I've got. You don't think I don't see you, Stelter? I see you. You understand me? I know what you think of me and my family. I see you right back. You understand that? You understand that, Stelter? I see you, enemy. You are my enemy. He is your enemy. I see you, enemy.
So people say, well, why is he so angry? Well, it's because he's literally trying to take us off air, literally taking our sponsors. I see you, I know what you're doing. So I'm pissed off at him. And so there he is, all sweet and liberal and cackling and laughing, but he's really an agent of anti-American totalitarianism. He was the front man of that, and I wanted to simply say, you're right.
This uncircumcised Philistine, who does he think he is? Think I don't see you, Stelter? I see you, you understand me? I know what you think of me and my family. I see you right back. You understand that? You understand that, Stelter? I see you, enemy. You are my enemy. He is your enemy. I see you, enemy.
What's interesting is, after dinner, you and my producer called Stelter. What was so interesting was he was very kind of syrupy sweet with you.
That's why I was sarcastic and told him I wanted to date him.
You did. In fact, the exact line that you had was, Brian, I'm not usually gay, but I want you. You've been very clear in a very direct, pretty masculine way, I would say, about how you feel about Brian Stelter. There's not a lot of confusion about your views on Stelter. And he seemed a little bit, I'm not saying he's open to it or whatever, but he wasn't shocked.
He's like, give me your phone number.
Think I don't see you, Stelter? I see you, you understand me? I know what you think of me and my family. I see you right back. You understand that? You understand that, Stelter? I see you, enemy. You are my enemy. He is your enemy. I see you, enemy.
I see my enemies too, right? And there's one enemy I can show you and the Dutch audience. There you are. I see you, Margaret. I see what you're doing, right? You are the enemy of humanity. This is our demissionary prime minister who has no power, fired for 4 times, and is still the prime minister because he's demissionary, waging war in Ukraine. You are the enemy. Thank you all for watching.